even though it's with its faults, I've traveled around the world, but America is has a good form of government, and I think that voting it's so important that we vote in order to save our democracy. I mean, we're losing it, and to people like the president now, and I think that is being emboldened to not respect and the rights of others and the safety of others. So I just want to say that it's so important that we vote to save our democracy and whatever come along with that.
I think you're right. I think that if there is going to be a checks and balances, which was outlined when this country started, there is no check and balances when one right-wing part of one party runs both the executive and legislative as well as the judicial branch. And you cannot even try to have a democracy where there's no checks and balances. I think you raise an excellent point, Ed. Thank you for your call. Let me go to my friend Judge Daisy from Cleveland, WERE. Judge Daisy?
Yeah, hello, Reverend Sharpton, and thank you again for all that you do, both in the civil rights area, and your activities, and also the communications, the radio, and the television. There's so many things to talk about, but we have to realize how important all of these things are, and thank you. And you spoke before about independent thought in the election. And one of the things I want to say that I normally say is please, everybody, encourage all of those you know. And, in fact, what I've done, and I'll do a little bit more, is even call some of my relatives in Georgia and in Florida and in the states where we have these extremely important elections. And please do not assume that everybody knows everything that you know. It's just amazing how uninformed a lot of the people are. And one of the things I ask you to emphasize is to ask everyone to whom you speak to really remember the important issues. For example, somebody brought up abortion, and when I was talking to them about one of the candidates running, and I explained to them the governor does not have any authority to pass legislation concerning abortion, and bringing up issues like that is a way of distracting them from the important issues. The important issues are the things that affect you every day in your life, such as health insurance, and we talked a little bit, the person I spoke to talked a little bit about that, and they realize how their health insurance is being affected. So my point is to please emphasize to people, especially some of these younger people you talk to, and well, the older ones too, to please concentrate on the important issues, and please do not allow yourself to be distracted by things that really are not affecting your daily life. And also, it just emphasizes to me the importance of bringing back civic classes to schools, because some of the people don't even realize.
Hold 1 minute, Judge Daisy. I'm going to hold you over and bring you back right after the break. Keeping it real. Exhale Friday. Shopton, 1-877-532-5797. We'll be right back.
Keeping it real. Keeping it real. Keeping it real. Is it
job sucking the life out of you? Wake up. You can do something else. Information technology. I know what you're thinking, but I'm not a math and science guy or gal. No problem, no excuses. It's not rocket science. It's My Computer Career. If you don't absolutely love what you're doing, go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free evaluation today. You could start your new life as an IT pro in as little as 4 months. mycomputercareer.edu. That's mycomputercareer.edu.
It's time to make a difference. We have the power to make real change. So don't sit on the sidelines this year. Your vote counts. Election Day is November 6th. Make sure you are registered to vote and vote early. For more information on registering to vote, go to newsone.com/vote. Brought to you by Urban One and Reach Media. Vote the dream. Make your one vote count. We have the power to change.
Offer not valid in all states or where prohibited by law. Loans are subject to lender approval. See website for details.
Hey, man, where'd you get all that extra cash?
Yo, keep it down. I went online to 67cash.com and bam!
Whoa.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. $4,000 was in my account today.
Wait a minute. 67cash.com helped you get $4K just like that?
You know it! 67cash.com's lenders provide fast cash personal loans for up to $5,000 for people like me with any type of credit.
Man, I'm always short on cash. Do you think 67cash.com will give me the cash I need fast?
If you need extra cash fast, go to 67cash.com. Just have a checking account and a regular source of income. Go to 67cash.com and you can get the loan you need now, regardless of your credit. Go to 67cash.com from your smartphone or computer to get the cash you need. Visit 67cash.com. Type www.67cash.com directly into the address bar. That's 67cash.com. 67cash.com.
1010 WOLB Baltimore and WERQ FM HD3 Baltimore.
The views and opinions of the guest and host you hear on 1010 WOLB are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Radio 1, its sponsors, or advertisers.
Good morning, family. The Patrick Henderson's Meet the People radio family stands in solidarity to denounce the domestic terrorism that we're seeing all across the country, especially to attacks that are being committed within our community. We take this second to honor those who have lost their lives this weekend, as well as those who are continue under attack because of this administration. And we take a moment of silence to honor those. We thank you for honoring with us. Patrick.
Good morning to each and every one of you. We used an unusual and different way to come on the air today, and our hearts go out to all of the people who lost their lives, 11 of them, and many more injured in the synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we feel you. We understand why this has happened, and we can clearly lay this at the feet of you all's president. I won't even call his name, number 45. He's scary. It's just scary what's going on. I was shocked yesterday at my church when we were asked to take I'm sorry. Let me introduce my panel this morning, because I got a good one. Say hello to my co-host, Mr. Leo Burroughs Jr. Good morning, Leo.
Well, good morning, and praise the Lord, and pass the ammunition for justice, decency, and fair play.
Absolutely. And we've got two incredible guests joining, and I'm hoping three of them is going to become a fixture here. because not only is he involved in the community, but he is, for a long period of time, but he's a brilliant man. Please welcome Doc Cheatham. How are you, Doc?
I'm good. I thought you were introducing somebody else, not me.
Oh, no, man.
All I got to say is God bless you. And family, if you didn't hear last week, we've given our great host, Patrick Henderson, a new title. His new title is Praise Him.
Amen.
Praise Him.
That's what I do.
Praise Him.
The giver of life.
Honored to be here.
Oh, we're honored to have you here, and honored to be a part and have this opportunity to come before you, the people of Baltimore, and to talk to you about what's going on in our city. The one thing that I think that we should, I want you to consider is, I was just speaking about the silence that was just given at the top of the show, and just recently at my church, there was a moment of silence, but I don't remember ever stopping for a moment of silence for the black kids that are killed every day here in our city. I don't remember a collective in my church. Do you remember a collective in your church where they actually stopped and said, let's pray for the family of those children that have been killed?
Well, at my church there has been times.
You go to Concord Baptist?
Yes, Concord Baptist. There has been times for that.
That has
happened. But I'm struck by the fact that we keep repeating this scenario. Admittedly, we can't shut it off right away, but the mass murders, we come to expect every week or two that there are going to be 10 or 15 or 20 people killed. And the response to this seems to be, well, we're not going to do anything about guns and the proliferation of guns.
The growth of,
We're going to let the National Rifle Association continue to do what it does. We're not going to sentence people to death. And when we sentence them to death, in my opinion, we should carry out that mandate, as in the case of Dylan Roof in South Carolina. He went in the church and killed 9 black folks, including the pastor of that church. And how many years has it been? 3 or is it 4 years? And he's still walking and talking.
And we're still paying for him to live.
We're still paying
$75,000 a year.
We're still paying the freight for his health care, his lodging, his housing, his food. I think there has to come a point in time when we as a society are going to say, we will be prayerful even prior to executing you, whether it be firing squads or whatever method of execution we use. And one would argue, is that a deterrent to murder? And one can say, well, some people are deterred and some are not. It doesn't change the equation as far as I'm concerned. Execute them, let's legislate a time frame in which we're going to conduct these executions within 2 years after the adjudication has been rendered in court that they are guilty of murder, and let the lawyers fight that out in terms of appealing the process and whether they stay on death row for 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years. We don't expedite mass murderers who we know are guilty. I'm only talking about people we know are guilty. If we know they're guilty, they accede to the fact that they're guilty. They engage in gun battles with police and they're not killed. Black folks who engage in gun battles with police are killed.
Don't live to talk about
it. So what I'm saying is we got to consistently respond to murders and mass murders. And again, I advocate federal legislation, and I guess it's a constitutional amendment I'm talking about, because you guys on my right know more than I. Why can't we in this country establish murder as a federal crime against any American citizen and federalize it? Does that require a constitutional amendment? But we got all these different scenarios. Every state has this hodgepodge of foolishness.
Is it the infringement upon states' rights, Dwight? I'm sorry, let me introduce you all. They're the greatest mind, one of the most brilliant people I know, and a true patriot of our people, and one with us is the brilliant attorney, Mr. A. Dwight Pettit. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, Pat. Always my pleasure to be here with you and your distinguished guest.
Thank you.
But as to the question that you asked, that's part of our separation of not just powers, but separation of state and federal government. And for the feds to declare jurisdiction in a state matter, there has to be some connection to federal rights. And when you go beyond that, I think you might need more than a constitutional amendment. But that's just off the top of my head.
No, but that's what I was. Got so many different responses to murder, though. Every state, they're playing all kinds of games. People getting killed, and
it depends on who gets killed, right?
Yes, it does.
That's the sad part about it, that it's not equal. That's what is.
Right. But Dwight, we see under this particular case with the shooting at the synagogue that they're actually calling for the general attorney of the United States government to implement the death penalty in this particular case.
Yeah, but that was clearly a hate crime. Falling under the federal statutes is a hate crime because he actually was articulating his reasons for being there was a religious reason.
That's right. He wanted to kill Jews.
Deprivation of constitutional rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Well, you know, I was just, go ahead.
We should have done the same thing with, if it wasn't done, but it should have been the same situation with murders throughout South Carolina and
Dylan Roof.
Yes.
Correct.
It should have been.
But there's a double standard, though.
But that's a double standard of the federal government.
Yes. But I was just talking with one of our personalities whom I love, Maureen Brown, and she brought to my attention, she said, Patrick, she says, I understand, but this seems to be a direct attack on religion.
And that's what it is.
But how can we separate religion from human beings? How is it an attack just on religion? It's an attack on.
Well, I'm just talking about for federal jurisdiction.
Oh, for jurisdiction to put a
to make it a hate crime and to seek, because the statutes, the hate crime statutes are very, very limited, and you have to be able to show that it's connected to not only a constitutional right, but in terms of race or religion or what have you. So that's your nexus to take it. It doesn't deprive the state of jurisdiction. The state can still proceed with its prosecution. I think we saw that in, I think it's South Carolina, where the state and the feds prosecuted
Dylan Roof.
Right. And so it's just a matter of the feds claiming jurisdiction because of the violation of the Civil Rights Act.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Leo said to me, we were laughing coming over in the car when they arrested Dylan Roof. They took him to Burger King.
Yeah.
Sort of as his last supper.
To
socialize him. But when a black man is arrested, and he normally, and it involves the police or something as heinous as what Dylan Roof did, he doesn't live to tell about it. I noticed this guy lived to tell about the massacre he just performed at that Jewish synagogue. They didn't take him out. But I heard the rabbi say this morning that they will never be able to use that building again. He said there are so many bullet holes in the walls that they don't even want to try to repair them. So can you imagine your place of worship being violated like that? Can you imagine the temple down there in South Carolina being violated, that the people in there still worshiping there? You know, when I was assaulted, my mother says, I know you're getting out of this place. I know you're not going to live in this house. She couldn't understand how I could live there after I almost lost my life there. I said, Mom, it's not the house. You know, it's where I live. And I survived. I wonder if the people in South Carolina feel like that. But the Jewish people said no. They would never be able to use that room again.
Well, so, that's their option. I mean, you know, you can repair anything physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, that's another question. But yeah, you can repair bullet holes. But I hear what they're saying, and they have a right. They have that option.
The scar tissue.
The scar tissue and the emotional scars.
What we call keloid. Black folks, you know, it's a certain part of us where we get a scar, it won't heal because of the many colorations in our blood, and it'll make a scab of sorts that becomes naturalized to our skin. So these are keloids we're talking about.
And the sanctity of their place of worship.
Right.
And we're expecting more mass murders, aren't we, in this country? There seems to be a propensity of murders and ongoing celebration on the part of the President of the United States. In my opinion, he's still threading the needle. Threading the needle and encouraging violence.
But yet we have not, the Ku Klux Klan has not been determined and labeled as a domestic terrorist group. And they have been terrorizing black people for over 150 years. So I don't think that they're really serious about this. I think that they're rising up only because they're going to have to say something. People talking about, we need to make this group a hate group. Let's start with the Ku Klux Klan.
And lynching is not a federal crime.
Exactly. Who can believe that?
Well, this is America.
Or, Patrick, even a lot of these particular acts that go on in this country, we refuse, especially the mainstream media refuses to identify this as domestic terrorism.
Right.
You hear them not wanting to identify that and chastise, these domestic terrorist acts.
Well, not only that, I noticed this morning the head of the JDL, I believe it's the Jewish Defense League, I think it's the JDL, he would not call Trump's name. Well, I couldn't believe it. He wouldn't call his name.
Patrick, there's a reason for that.
Well, hey, Richard, I'm sorry.
Richard Terry.
Welcome our other guest, Mr. Richard Terry, a brilliant man. Go ahead, Richard. I'll introduce you later. Go ahead, talk.
Well, the reason I don't think that they're calling it on him was because he's done what they wanted him to do all along, was when he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, which is something that they've always had on their plate. Once he did that, he fulfilled what they want. So why bite the hand that feeds you?
Yes, we forget.
Interesting point, Richard.
Yeah, no, it isn't probably
absolutely
one that absolutely correct. They have an allegiance.
We must exercise the right of self-defense, and I'm not talking about establishing a militia or anything of the sort, but to say that black folk or people who are threatened should not exercise the right of self-defense is a concern to me. And I'm hearing from some quarters that when you speak as I'm speaking, that is, we're told that kind of speech is inflammatory and that I'm advocating violence. No, I'm advocating that you protect and defend yourself as best you can by any means necessary if you come under attack from your enemies.
Well, that's interesting. That's an interesting way to get us into this subject. One of the reasons I've invited you gentlemen here today, the election of the governor of the state of Maryland. As many of you know, Larry Hogan is not only the governor, but Larry Hogan has just been a bit deceptive to the people of Maryland. I keep saying it. I don't know why nobody's latching on to it. Larry Hogan is supported by the Koch brothers. Larry Hogan is against the unions. Yes, unions, who helped us get an 8-hour workday, who helped us get vacations, who helped us to get increases in pay. Without unions, we, especially as black people, would have no collective bargaining at all. And this man is against unions. He's against the $15 an hour minimum wage, which we know is the barest minimum that we can live. You cannot even rent an apartment with a bedroom in it for $10.10 a week, an hour. It's just not going to happen. Hogan is also against unified health care. Can you imagine somebody that would be against the people of this state not being able to get health care as needed with pre-existing diseases? He's against that. He's against our HBCUs. I was reading this morning, some local lawyer says that he offered $100 million for it. Well, I believe the judgment was $1 billion. It was over $1 billion that was owed because of the neglect of the HBCUs. Doc, can you speak to this?
Well, that's exactly correct. And I guess the difference in opinion is to where that number came from. That number actually came from the state. It came from the Maryland Higher Education Commission. They were asked by the Judge Catherine Blake, what was their guesstimate as to how much it would cost, listening to the attorneys representing the plaintiffs, how much it would actually cost. The state came up with the $2.1 billion. This wasn't a request by the plaintiffs' attorneys. This was the number that the state gave as to how much it would cost. And, basically the governor offering $100 million is an insult. It's an insult when you look at the fact that almost 20 years ago, a similar case was decided where $400 million was given to 3 schools instead of 4 schools, and that was 20 years ago. And, of course, we know the cost of living has gone up for everything and everybody, and we're saying very clearly we merely want to ask for what we feel is by right, the right of the 4 institutions. Give us what the state said it was going to cost to at least begin to make whole the injustices that have been done by the state of Maryland through duplication and basically through discrimination.
For the past how many years? It's more than 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
It's more. It's way back when you had to fight to get just to get into any school here in the state of Maryland. I am not discouraged, but I am dismayed by the number of black people who are supporting a governor who is against unions, who is against funding our schools properly. Franco just said on the radio on Larry Young show this morning that they have over $1 billion in surplus. And so what does he want to do with that money? He wants to put it into a rainy day account because he feels as though the economy is going to take a turn for the worse for all you Republicans or Republicans out there who think that your boy is doing such a great job. He's not doing it. Everybody is scared, especially big business people and Wall Street. I was looking at them down in Arizona. They can't even sell the cotton that they got down there backed up because of these tariffs that Trump has put. Look at the farmers in Iowa. They can't sell their soybeans. They're going broke. He offered them $1 billion. That's just the tip of the iceberg of the money that they're losing. There's so many ways that this guy is affecting us, but right now we must think locally. And for those local people of influence to be backing this man, Hogan, knowing that he is not who he says he is, he only does just enough, and these people that's doing these advertisements, talking about he came to my neighborhood. There's this guy that we all know that says that during the riot he saw Hogan. Had he seen Hogan before that? And did he see Hogan after that? These people talking about he's coming to my neighborhood. That's just because he's he's up trying to get reelected, and then Dallas is giving him a run for his money. That's the only reason why he's here. Don't get it twisted. And I don't care what you say. It ain't what you say. It's what you do. Now, if I was the governor, if I was the mayor, and I gave somebody billions of dollars to do something, don't you think I would be following behind them to see if they're doing it? If it's because I'm giving you the money, and I mean, what did Reagan say? Trust, but what? Verify. Now, you're going to find me quoting no Republican, but that's one thing that old piece of crap they got right. And he was a piece of crap. Yes, he was. No matter what you say, he. You talking about
Ronnie?
I'm talking about Ronnie Reagan. Y'all must realize what he did. Ronald Reagan made them start putting taxes on your Social Security. That's your money that you've earned. That money should never have been taxed. Then they start borrowing money from Social Security and doing other things with it, but they never replaced it. So here we are in the situation, and Social Security is good to, I believe, 2070 or something like that. But they're saying that it's almost bankrupt. You know why it's almost bankrupt? It's because they're giving tax breaks and cuts to the rich people. And I heard this woman call this morning, her name is Dee, I think, talking about us conservatives. Us conservatives, a black conservative, according to Tim Watts, who was once a Republican. His father told him a black man joining up with the Republican Party is like a chicken joining up with Colonel Sanders. You will be dinner.
Patrick, can I make a little announcement related
yes,
to the HBCUs?
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Tuesday, almost the same time that this show started, tomorrow at 11:30 a.m., there will be a rally to save Maryland HBCUs. It would take place at Morgan State University at what's called the Plaza area, which is in front of the Earl Graves School of Business on Hillen Road. That will happen tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. We're very happy to say with the great leadership of Sharon Blake, Zatora Sims-Ells, and the students and alumni at Morgan. There's a major rally tomorrow to support our HBCUs, and we're asking everyone, even if you didn't go to an HBCU, if you feel the injustice that's taken place here in the state of Maryland for the last 20 years, come meet us, come beat us at 11:30 a.m. tomorrow at Morgan State University for the rally to save Maryland HBCUs. And what are HBCUs? Historically black colleges and universities. We're speaking specifically of Bowie, Coppin, Morgan, and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore.
And that rally tomorrow is on Hillen Road?
Hillen Road, that is correct.
At 11:30.
In front of the Earl Graves School of Business.
I spoke with some of the people yesterday here in the station from Coppin, and while the university can't take sides, they're telling me that they have registered over 500 students to vote at Coppin. So there is an underground. There is a foreground, there's an underground that's working. And until the young people, the Bible says he calls the old because they're wise, but he calls the young because they're strong.
That's right.
And here we are. We need their strength. We need their strength to take us to this next level of that we need to go. Richard Terry?
Yes?
You know my consternation and my sort of this lack of encouragement with the local scene as far as people backing Hogan. But I wanted to say this to you. I'm in hopes. Do y'all remember his name wasn't Ed, but Tom Bradley.
Tom Bradley.
In L.A. You remember when he ran for governor? He was the mayor, and he'd done such a fantastic job.
Yeah, I remember that.
And there were all these polls that said he was going to win the election and stuff, and all them white folks said they was going to vote for him. But when they got in that booth, what did they do?
They double-crossed him.
I'm praying that happens here with our Democrats.
I don't think it will, Patrick, because remember what you and I talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
And remember I said to you the reason that there is such a massive split between the Democratic Party, between what is considered the Bernie Sanders wing and the more moderate Democratic parts of the Democratic Party, is the same thing that happened with the Republican Party with the formulation of the Tea Party, which is now the Freedom Caucus.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact same ideological split, where the one part of the party is now thinking that the other part, especially the Sanders part, is going too far. And if I'm hearing right on the news, tomorrow, allegedly in Montgomery County, Mr. Jealous is bringing in Bernie himself.
That's good. I think that's good. I think it's good because I think everybody's saying, well, you can't take sides, but we must take sides. It's the difference, the battle is between good and evil. And when you think of Republicans, I don't care what anybody says. What did I love that? What's his name? Pullum, the governor run, the young man, black man running down in Florida. And
Gillum.
Gillum, when I love the way he handled it. He says, "I'm not calling him a racist, my opponent." He says, "But all the people that vote for him and want him to win are." I thought that was such a slick way to indict him without pointing a finger at him directly. And that's what I think that we must do. We must stand up to these people and say, if this is what the people that support them, this is what they stand for, then this is what they stand for. And how do we separate and say that there's a difference? Yes, Leo.
Brian Frosh and Peter Franchot. Where do they stand on HBCUs? Brian Frosh seems to be clearly an enemy. He's a Democrat, but he's an enemy of African people on this issue. And Peter Franchot said this morning on air on another show that he was neutral in the governor's race, and is neutrality equivalent to, what is it equivalent to? Neutrality, status quo? Yeah. I mean, I don't understand. Now, where's Peter? I know he's an angel in the eyes of some, and he's a white liberal, or is he a phony, or what is he? We got black phonies, we got white phonies, but where's Peter Franchot on this issue? Has he endorsed the stance that has been taken in the court of Catherine Blake? I mean, what do the rest of you guys think? I'm saying a little.
Well, what I'm thinking is what I've heard Doc and Dwight say for a long time now. This is the stall game. It's like in basketball, the old four corners. They're stalling long enough to get the elections over with, and then at that point, this case is going to have to go to the Fourth Circuit, then ultimately to the Supreme Court,
where it will be killed.
Where it will die.
Yes.
So it's a white power move?
No, it's more dangerous than that. Doc Cheatham was talking about the effects on the 4 HBCUs here in Maryland. But this is a national movement in which Maryland is carrying the flag, because Maryland has been in defiance of federal law and constitutional law for years. I was on the Board of Regents when this suit was filed in 2006. I advised the Board of Regents then that it was unconstitutional and illegal to, in fact, take courses from the black schools and appropriate them to the white schools. I was outvoted 16-1.
Wow.
Because the Board of Regents was 17 people. But what is happening, the rest of the South capitulated. When the Justice Department and all said you were in violation because of a duplication of courses, as Doc Cheatham indicated, states paid off, they compromised, they settled. Maryland was defiant. Maryland has been defiant in terms of federal law and constitutional law for years. And what Maryland did, became the symbol for the southern states who were in violation to reverse a case by the name of Fordyce.
Yes.
What Fordyce said, the United States Supreme Court, was that the taking of courses from the black institutions was a constitutional infringement and, in fact, was costly to the black institutions because when they took the courses, all the students followed the courses. And so, therefore, it had a tremendous impact on the HBCUs. And a federal judge here, Judge Blake, agreed. So what Maryland is doing, they're not just stalling. This matter is now in the Fourth Circuit. Briefs have been filed on both by the plaintiffs and the defendants, but they don't care what happens in the Fourth Circuit because, believe it or not, the Fourth Circuit, thanks to President Obama, has become, instead of the most conservative circuit, has become one of the most liberal circuits. Their goal is to get this case in front of the Supreme Court that is now becoming a Trump court and a majority Republican court to knock out Fordyce and reverse the whole history of helping and assisting HBCUs throughout the nation. This is a big picture. Maryland just happens to be at the head of the spear for a major movement across this country to, in fact, do or destroy HBCUs.
Well, Doc, will you speak to Zuckerman and Spader, the law firm that was hired by Brian Frosch to litigate this case, or am I jumping?
No, you're hitting some viable issues, but let's first listen to the two names that were brought up. You brought up the name Francho.
Hold on for a minute, Doc. You're listening to Patrick Henderson, and yes, you're listening to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. We got to go and let y'all know who he is and why he is. Don't you touch that dial.
1010 WOLB Baltimore and WERQ FM HD3 Baltimore.
This is not the time to get distracted.
This is not the time to get off course.
And this is not the time to go off course.
It's not. Listen up.
This is not the time to lose your focus. You gotta work to you for the Lord.
Yes, and we cannot afford to lose our way. Bring it down. Thank you so much for playing that. I want us to remind us, Mr. Pettit said, the big picture. Some of us can't see any farther than the tips of our noses. We don't plan. This old white man told me down there when I was in California on this big Christian record company. He says, you know what's wrong with your people, with you people, is you don't plan. You don't plan. You don't look no further than the noses in the front of your faces. And you end up in situations that could have been avoided if you just looked ahead. And this is what's happening. This is not the time. Hey, Dwight Pettit, you know I love you. And the urgency with which you speak, you were saying this even before we elected Trump. Y'all said the one thing that y'all need to remember is the Supreme Court.
Amen.
That's the whole thing. And look what we got here. And if he gets another, God, well, I'm praying that Ginsburg and none of them have no stroke or nothing. Because then if he gets 6 people on there, we're screwed already.
Right. We got 5-4 now.
We got 5-4 now. Exactly. So if we get 6 on there, y'all, we can kiss our dairy heirs as being Americans with equal rights goodbye. What was one of the first things they did after they got the full majority? They took away to change the voting rights. All the people that were allowed to discriminate against us, Texas, Mississippi, all of them, soon as they dropped that voting rights thing, they all went back to doing it. What?
From Selma to Shelby.
Wow.
Shelby was the decision that came down that knocked out the Civil Rights Voting Rights Act. And we know the blood that was paid for, the price that was paid for in Selma.
Yes,
and
sir.
Shelby knocked it all out with one stroke of the United States Supreme Court.
One stroke. And then y'all talking about y'all are conservative when they trying to fix it where you can't even vote?
Well, there's also another part to this, too. Not only when we're talking about the Supreme Court, but look what he's doing to the appellate courts.
Oh, and district court, too. Don't forget the district court.
Because, the one circuit that I'm watching with a great deal of interest is the Ninth. Because for years, the Ninth has been the most liberal, quote-unquote, liberal circuit in the United States.
We need to also definitely look at the Fourth, because that's the one that impacts us directly rather than indirectly. But I wanted to go back and give you the 2 names that were brought up, the name of Francho. And listeners, I want you to hear this. This was a Dr. King quote. It's not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Do we give Francho the right to be silent on this issue of HBCUs. Then the other name came up was the name Brian Frost. And I know that there are a lot of folks who believe in voting, not voting your intelligence, voting initials, D's and R's. But this shouldn't be a D and R issue. We need to look at what is in our best interest. And all I can tell folks, if you don't think Brian Frost had anything to do with the appeal of the decision that Judge Blake ruled,
about the
look
HBCUs.
at the document and see who signed it. All right, if he didn't have anything to do with it, look and see whose name signed it. The governor didn't sign this document, nor did the Maryland Higher Education Commission. Their board didn't sign it. It was signed by Brian Frost. And then the attorneys that Leo brought up, the attorneys that basically represented the state of Maryland, the hearings of which I attended all of them, at no point, and I'm hoping he's listening or his staff is listening, at no point did Brian Frost come to any of those hearings. I was at all of them. How can you basically oversee and look over the attorneys that you've hired to deal with this case, and not once did Brian Frost come to any of those hearings?
Would you address the money issue here, Dwight and others, with this Zuckerman and Spader law firm in Washington, D.C., with the millions of dollars?
Well, that's a very interesting point, because Brian Frost said on the Larry Young Show that they litigated this in-house, when we know that they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to retain private counsel. So he just, in my opinion, he just outright lied.
He just lied. He's a lying snake.
The same lie that he gives to justify. He says, and he said last week, his supporters, that he had by constitutional law to defend the state of Maryland when a suit is filed against the state of Maryland. Well, the coalition suit was filed and was ruled upon. What gave him the authority? The governor said on the radio he didn't give him the authority. What gave him the authority to file an appeal? That's not defending the state of Maryland. That's a case that's already been litigated.
Right. Was that the White Citizens Council gave him the authority?
It must be.
Or the Ku Klux Klan or somebody.
Is the Ku Klux Klan. Following Doc Cheatham, what Doc Cheatham said, I voted yesterday. And I voted Democrat all the way down, except for Attorney General. I voted for Mr. Wolf.
You did.
Yes, indeed.
And I got to ask you about that. I'm scared that if
I'm voting the same way. This is Doc Cheatham. Okay. I'm voting the same way.
Help your brother out. What if Hogan wins and we got a Republican Attorney General and a Republican governor? Does that kind of give you a bit of a pause at all? Does that?
Well, I tried to think of all the negatives, and I looked at Wolf's record. I didn't see anything which had any negatives in terms of the black communities. Basically, a law and order candidate, former prosecutor, former war veteran, and what have you. He seems to be a very fine man. And when he met with Doc Cheatham, he indicated that he would dismiss the appeal and he would resolve the HBCU situation. And dismissing the appeal is the first thing, because what Judge Blake said, she never did order the money. All Judge Blake said was go back into negotiations and select a mediator and negotiate the amount of money. What's wrong with that? I mean, people talk about going to the Supreme Court. What's wrong with the original district court judge who heard all the evidence and says, okay, I rule in favor of the plaintiffs, the coalition, the HBCUs. Now y'all got back to the table and decide how much money.
So we send Brian Frost sheets and cone hats. What do we say? Brian is a snake. I have to go with Craig Wolf.
They've done a political football. Hogan has shifted it, tried to shift it to Frost, and Frost has tried to shift it back to him. To Hogan, where both of them,
it's a conspiracy.
Have been in a conspiracy.
I call it a conspiracy.
But does not the buck stop with the governor?
Well, the governor always has the power to order or dismiss any type to order the state's attorney general. But the attorney general constitutionally has the power to recommend to the governor.
Right,
but
recommend, not determine how the governor decides.
But that's what I'm saying. Brian Frost had no business filing an appeal. He had no authority to file an appeal, and especially when the lieutenant governor comes on the air, which we had him on our show, and says, "Hey, we didn't know anything about it. We didn't authorize it. We haven't been able to get Brian Frost on the phone." So Brian Frost did that himself. in terms of the HBCUs. He stood out as the flag carrier for the southern states who, in fact, want to destroy the HBCUs.
And he's spending our money, taxpayers' money by the millions of dollars.
Right.
To go after HBCUs, hiring an all-white law firm in Washington, D.C., Zuckerman and Spader.
On top of that, Leo, the Constitution of Maryland says that if you're going to use outside counsel, he was supposed to have gone to the legislative body to get financial authority to pay outside counsel.
Can he be impeached?
He lied about that, too.
Hard to do, but can he be impeached?
Anybody can be impeached.
Okay.
But we got next Tuesday. We can send his butt out the farm.
That's the initial.
That we got the power right now to impeach him. I'm so glad that you came, because I had reticence about Wolf. But now, since I respect you and I know you guys know what you're talking about,
amen.
Y'all, we need to send Frost. He needs an early vacation, and we need to do it we can do that this coming Tuesday next week. Let's see what we can do about that. I'm going to go to the phones. This is I know y'all hot and ready to roll.
These phones are hot.
Yes, they will. I tell you what. Charles, do you have a question or comment, sir? Welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People.
Yes, I have a comment.
Come forth.
The United States is a place where you can have a major news story of international import, and then the rest of the country would sleep through it. Now, the Republican Party, I'm just going to come on out and say it. All right, not play around with it. The Republican Party is a state-sponsored terrorist organization.
Yes, sir.
And there's no question. It is harboring. It's probably two. The guy who shot up the synagogue. But this Caesar Sayok. There's no question about it.
That's the guy down in Florida.
And the only reason it's not being declared so is that the media has not declared it so. Now, if Sayok was of Middle Eastern descent, there would be absolutely no question about it, because what he's done or attempted to do is no less terrorist than someone from ISIS. All right, and so the Republican Party is harboring such, and not only that, they haven't even solved that problem, because they haven't. But the FBI has determined that there aren't any others out there planning to do the same thing. The assumption always is that when a white boy gets caught,
he's Lone Ranger.
When a member of the KKK gets caught, it's always assumed that he's a loner. And we've heard this talk that he wasn't involved in politics. He had no
interest in politics. All lies.
Trump came along.
Yes.
See, all of this is designed by the media to shield him from being labeled for what he is. He's a domestic terrorist. I would put it on. A terrorist of international import. And the Republican Party is a state-sponsored terrorist organization.
White nationalists.
And that's why the media is not going to declare this person. But it's important for black people to know what it is.
Yes, sir. I agree with you 100%, sir.
Hey,
absolutely. Yes, Richard.
If I heard right today, they found another package headed towards the CNN again.
Really? So he just didn't put them on automatic delivery, huh?
I don't know.
Unless you got a copycat.
Unless you got a copycat.
Another one was intercepted before it got to CNN.
Wow.
But it's this culture and this environment that's coming out of this administration that's kind of
promoting
promoting
violence.
Prompting. I read this morning on the news that in 2017 crimes against what they consider anti-Semitic crimes went up almost 60%. Well, my God, what is more? If that's on them, what is it going up against us? That man shot them people in that grocery store the other day, and it wasn't even on the news. Somebody tried to stop him. A white guy tried to stop him. He says, "No, white people don't kill other white people. We kill N-words," and shot the man standing in the back of his head.
That was in Kentucky, wasn't it?
Yes,
Kentucky.
Yes, yes. So I'm telling you,
Patrick, what about these cases that you're seeing around the country where white folks are challenging black folks just because they live in an area or live in a building, you know, and they're asking them whether or not do they live here or not?
Yo, please forgive me for what I'm about to say if it bothers you. But when Iran used to refer to America as the Great Satan, I would say that's a terrible thing to say. It's a terrible thing to say. But now I'm starting to understand what they were saying to allow this to go on. That I heard a Jewish guy today from the Jewish Defense League or whatever say that this is the greatest atrocity and the Jews have suffered more than any other people. I'm sorry, sir. That is just simply not true. It is not true, even to this day. This is rare. This is the first time this many Jewish people have been killed at one time in American history. I'm heard. But what we got to do is go back to Tulsa, to Black Wall Street. All we got to do is go to Philadelphia, where the
building with
where they bombed our people, killed Rosewood. So it's not. I'm sorry, sir. I understand. I empathize and I understand. But listen, you all have not suffered anywhere near what black people continue to suffer to this day. Winston, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. You have a question or comment, sir?
Oh, so boy, y'all have a beautiful show.
Thank you.
I tell you, man. But I was thinking about. I went to Maryland State in 1963, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore.
Mm-hmm. You're going out. Get off your headphones if you're on there. Talk directly into the phone for us.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Much better.
Okay, and yet till today, we didn't have, back then, University of Maryland had about 6 swimming pools. We didn't have any.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have, and the books and everything. I mean, I was in the school, so I know what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
And
we all were.
It hasn't gotten much better from 1963 till today.
Yeah, agree.
Because, like you say, we ought to have been had that money.
Yes, yes. They don't want us to get it. They don't want to educate us.
To get it.
No.
They don't want us. They don't want us to be educated.
That's what it is.
I mean,
there will be a rally. There will be a rally that will be taking place.
Thank you,
looks
sir.
like it'll be one is tomorrow. That's going to be for Morgan, but we are scheduling one. And you really tell your age, my good brother. You sound much younger.
I'm 73, gorgeous years old.
God's been good to you, but there will be one at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore in the month of November. Next month, we will be scheduling a rally there. One will take place at Compton, and another one will take place at Bowie. All 4 schools will be getting HBCU supportive rallies.
Now, you know what the defense for the HBCUs are?
Thank you.
Just to give you the defense. The defense is we gave you black folks money for the HBCUs, and now we let you go to the white schools. You don't need the HBCUs.
That's their attitude, right?
That's their counter-argument.
That is their counter-argument. But research has shown,
signed by Frost,
that black children who go to historically black colleges are not only better educated and differently educated, but they are truly educated. They learn how to be thinkers and entrepreneurs and learn validation of who they are.
Not only that, Pat, there's just so much impact that the HBCUs have had to pull us up as a people.
Yes.
You got to remember the history from the time we were freed as slaves. That's when the HBCUs came about. Howard University and Fisk and Hampton in the 1860s. Because white folks didn't want black folk to be educated.
No, that's
and they have played such an important role historically for the uplifting of black communities.
Yes, sir.
Whether or not you went to an HBCU or not. The effect of the HBCUs in terms of an educated population, lawyers, civil rights lawyers, doctors, et cetera, has been enormous in terms of the impact on America.
Yeah, I don't want to say not only that, but the networks that it built within our people to continue to work together after they do. See, that's what the relationships, that's what white folks got figured out. And as long as they skin is white, they got a relationship. We're the only ones that just say, well, you know, he's a little too dark, or she's a little too, all this bull crap that separates us, this foolishness, which is why I cannot understand why every black politician or a person of influence in Baltimore is not saying that we need to put Ben Jealous in there. He's brilliant. And not only is he well educated, but even with his company, with where he finds, what does he do? Investment
banker.
He finds people with ideas that don't have the money for it, and he helps them find it, mostly minorities. So he's still reaching into our community. Listen, this man is the visionary that we need. He has proved his administrative skills by being the head of the NAACP for a number of years.
And bringing the NAACP out of financial ruin.
Exactly. So he knows how to handle things fiscally as far as the money, but then he has a heart. I said it yesterday on the radio. He comes from biracial parents, but unlike Barack Obama, his mom and his dad had to leave Maryland because it was against the law. For them to be married. Barack's daddy left his mama, so he was raised on the white side of things, and he still had some allegiances there that I believe that hurt us as a people. Now, his wife might be black, and she might be a Capricorn, and she might have all this other thing, but he's a Leo, and he is the ruler. And they said even when he was at Harvard, the president of the I can't think of the name of the council there, where that Harvard Law Review, that he tried to please everybody. But when you listen to him on the radio and TV the other day, now he finally talking about the Republicans the way he should have been talking about them the whole time. If he would have a lot more people in his corner. But I noticed even on my page, he used to get a lot of likes. Now it might be 1 or 2, because black people are realizing that Obama is the one that hurt us most when it comes to going to school, because he went in there. And when we're trying to get money for the HBCUs, and he said that you're not graduating enough black kids. You're not doing it. They're wasting money. And when he didn't stop there, he went in those Pell Grants and fixed it. When you tried to validate to get a loan, he made it more restrictive and difficult for families to get loans for their kids to go to school.
Patrick?
That to me is unforgivable. I'm sorry. Yes.
But the question that has to be raised is, especially with Mr. Jealous, is why hasn't he gotten the assistance and the resources
DNC.
From the State Central Committee,
right, and the DNC,
or the Democratic Party, the DNC, as well.
We don't want to talk about the Maryland DNC, because if there was one group that could have come to the support and aid of HBCUs, it was the Maryland Democratic Party, which literally did nothing for us. You folks with them D's, and you proud of having them D's behind your name, let me just give it to you straight. The Maryland Democratic Party did nothing to help us with this HBCU case. Literally nothing.
Well, that leads me to, that's a right segue, Doc, because the Legislative Black Caucus, is that one in the same? We talking about the Legislative Black Caucus in terms of its prioritizing HBCUs and other issues that speak to the black agenda and the job creation and all the things that we need, equitable funding for public schools as well as what's happening here with Adrian Jones and other folk who are in power positions in the Legislative Black Caucus with regard to the candidacy of Ben Jealous and with regard to the black agenda that we can block vote, you know, if we've got the guts. With the coming of the General Assembly, hopefully in the first 2 weeks of the General Assembly, we will stop the action and say, in Annapolis, Maryland, nothing moves in this arena until our issues are addressed and concerned, addressed and targeted by way of focusing on capitalizing on our preemptive needs, those things that are very important, vital to our interests. And I'm not getting the sense, and maybe I'm off base, but I don't get the sense, gentlemen, that is what is happening. We've got to advocate that our leadership stand up, chicken-hearted though some of them are, and speak to our needs as legislators.
Leo?
Yes.
One of the things, and you spoke on it earlier. One of the things is the areas that I'm waiting to see what happens with the Baltimore City delegation and the Black Caucus is in the area of criminal justice reform, especially after we're playing. Doc and I and some other people are not playing with something, but have seen something that needs to be corrected. And I think if we file something that might try to correct it, it's going to create a firestorm that a lot of people are not going to like.
So what? Keep going. So what? I'm so sick of us worrying about what they're going to think. We've got to. Eric Holder said it. He says they when stomp us, they talk about us. We're going to kick them. We don't have to kick them physically. We have the law, and so you're getting ready to tell us about this lawsuit that you and Doc Cheatham are proposing against this city solicitor. Am I correct?
Well, it's not a lawsuit, but it's an injunction. Request for an injunction.
Okay, and that injunction would do what?
Prevent the city solicitor's office from dealing with the Civilian Review Board. Totally.
Because he is doing what presently?
Because what happens is he's representing the Civilian Review Board as an advisor, but yet he's blocking the Civilian Review Board from receiving necessary documents from the police department, which he's also representing.
Who appointed this man? He's not voted on. Who appointed him?
That's the mayor.
The mayor.
You mean Catherine Pugh?
What Catherine Pugh did, she rearranged a lot of the city agencies. You see, the Civilian Review Board was always under the Civil Rights Commission, especially during the days of Alvin Gilliard. But somehow, within the last couple of months, I think it came out in July, she rearranged a lot of the agencies. Now the civil rights is now been put under the city solicitor's office, under the law department.
Is she trying to save money?
No, she's trying to protect the establishment.
Richard, who's pulling Catherine Pugh's strings?
Who knows? Follow the money.
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
Oh my God, that's an indictment, isn't it?
Not only is it.
Now, I've been looking at this for a long time now.
Hurry up, come quickly.
Okay, what I found was the first problem is with this whole bill when it was put in play by the General Assembly, made up of our great city delegation, is that they put the whole Civilian Review Board underneath the police department. It was stacked with members of the Baltimore Police Department, but in reality, the Civilian Review Board has more power than they think they or know that they have, because they can oversee the actions of not only the city police department, but the sheriff's department, Morgan State University's, Morgan State University's police department.
University of Maryland.
No, it's not written into it. That's the problem with it. It's incomplete.
But you're basing all this on what? Well, how do you base this that you're talking?
I'm looking. It's under Section 16-41 of the Baltimore City Public and Local Laws.
Is that the charter?
That's not the charter, but the public and local laws that are created by the General Assembly and put into what's called the Maryland Code of Public and Local Laws.
So you're saying that the Civilian Review Board actually has the power to investigate the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department, and having a policeman on the Civilian Review Board is antithetical?
They trained the members. They had it stacked with city police. It was, in my estimation, it was never designed to act right.
It was never designed, or they fixed the design to their advantage. Which was it? Was it designed that way, or did they miss?
Now, here's another part. In the law, it says that the Civilian Review Board has the authority to investigate incidents or complaints at the same time as the IAD does, even though the police.
What is the IAD? What is the IAD?
Internal Affairs Division.
Okay.
Even though IAD says no, you all have to wait till we're finished, the law says the Civilian Review Board doesn't have to wait.
Who enforces this, Dwight? Why is there any delay? Why is look at his face? I love it.
The plot thickens.
We're not the plot thickens. It's just that when I come to him, go ahead, attorney. I tell you, I love you.
It goes back to the people that created it, the mayor and the city solicitor.
It's
one big joke, one big circle.
And what we're saying, so maybe some of the lay people like me can understand what we're saying. We're saying that there's a serious conflict of interest.
Yes, man.
Having the city solicitors to not only advise the police department, but to do the same name for the Civilian Review Board, which in certain circumstances can hamper what the Civilian Review Board is doing in their investigatory process, because he basically can stop them actually doing what they're doing. So we're saying, no, one, this should never have gone back under the city, should have stayed where it was in the beginning. Basically, it was an appointment by the state agency that actually did it. And we're saying, no, we need it to go back and be separate. We don't need the city solicitor overseeing the Civilian Review Board and then having an impact on what they can and cannot do as it relates to the police department. That's a conflict.
He won't even honor subpoenas. The subpoenas have been issued, and the city solicitor basically quashed them.
And unbeknownst to most folks, the Civilian Review Board, other than the individual that they're looking at specifically, they had subpoena power. We found that out 2 years ago when we added a representative for the Baltimore City NAACP and the Maryland ACLU. When we added them on, unfortunately, we weren't as sharp looking at the document that we should have, because we were requesting that they would have voting powers. These two additional people, well, the way it ended up being passed and ended up being passed, that we added the two. So we're going to also revisit what we had attempted to do in the beginning, is to put two non-discriminatory type of positions, NAACP Baltimore branch and Maryland State ACLU, on there as voting members. So we have with a little more power. With subpoena powers. Subpoena powers has been there. It's been there for a while.
But he won't honor them, so what's the difference if the guy won't honor them?
That's right. If city solicitor won't honor them, that's the conflict.
That's
and we're saying we don't need him overseeing.
Well, so would that be against the law, what he's doing? This is
that's why the injunctive relief.
So
that's why you're seeking
fox
the
guarding the hen house.
Oh yes, fox guarding the fox up in the hen house. He ain't guarding Doodly. He up in the hen house. Okay. All right, hold on. You're listening to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People on WOLB 1010 Baltimore. Don't touch that down. Listen to what Miss Hughes telling y'all. It's just the truth.
This is not a time to get distracted. And this is not a time to go off course.
Talking the day, soul at night on the new 1010 WOLB.
This is Reality Radio. In Maryland, there's a brother who's a Rhodes Scholar, former head of the NAACP, and a man who's dedicated his whole life to fighting for the underdog. In fact, the only thing he hasn't done is save Wakanda. Ben Jealous is running for governor. He wants to raise the minimum wage to $15, get more government contracts for minorities, and pay teachers and first responders commensurate with the sacrifices they make. Bottom line, he wants to make a difference. In Maryland, Democrats have more than 2 million registered voters, and Republicans have only 1 million. You do the math. That's a 2-to-1 advantage. Last election, the Republicans won with only 800,000 plus votes. So the reality is, if only half of you go to the polls in November, Ben Jealous can still win. Sometimes victory is right in front of us, but we can't see it. Obama believed he could win, and Ben Jealous believes he can too. This is Reality Radio with Kathy Hughes.
Ben Jealous has a clear mission. He wants to create better opportunities for families across Maryland.
The promise of our state has always been that this place would be a place where it's a little easier for your children to achieve the American dream.
And for Ben, that starts by making our students and their schools the top priority again.
I have a plan to restore the promise of our state, to fully fund education. We'll make sure that all their kids can go to a good school and get a great education by finally fully funding our schools, stopping the $2 billion of underfunding, budgeting our schools first. We make sure our teachers are respected and paid better.
That's why President Barack Obama says, Ben Jealous has the vision, experience, and courage to move families forward. Ben Jealous, Democrat for governor. He'll put our kids first. This message has been authorized and paid for by the Maryland Together We Rise PAC. Marvin Randolph, Treasurer. This message has not been authorized or approved by any candidate.
1010 WOLB Baltimore and WERQ-FM HD3 Baltimore.
The views and opinions of the guest and host you hear on 1010 WOLB are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Radio 1, its sponsors, or advertisers.
Welcome back to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People, unless, of course, you're on the radio station and you can say what you want to say. Praise him is what we're doing, too, for Kathy Hughes. Yes, we are praising him because she is a realist, and we need to be realists. All you people think about voting for this Hogan guy, you have a misplaced sense of value. You have a misplaced sense of presence, and I don't understand it, and I guarantee you, man, now I'm gonna talk about this when we get a few more minutes, but all y'all that's out here voting for Hogan and saying you voting for Hogan, my mama taught me a little trick. She said, baby, you got to know you got to have that long handle spoon in the back of your pocket, and you got to be able to pull out that long handle spoon when necessary. I will not be able to trust anything that you have to say, knowing that we have so great a salvation as Ben Jealous, a brilliant man who is one of us, that we cannot come together and say we must elect him. The opportunity, just the possibilities should be endless and giving us great hope. But still, there are those that don't see it. So we're gonna pray for y'all.
In some of our families, that long handle spoon was used to chastise their buttocks.
Yeah, well, you know, I don't believe in violence, but I tell you what, don't come wrong.
we might have to use that though.
Yeah.
And the thing about it, Pat, universal health care. I mean, such an obvious thing that he is a champion of everybody having health care, pre-existing conditions and all. And for that to be on the table against the interests of so many people, especially African Americans. And just to be clear, Ben Jealous has indicated in terms of the HBCUs that he would dismiss the suit and he would put $2 billion into the coffers and the treasuries of the HBCUs. I just wanted to be clear about that because we never said his position.
Well, I'm glad you did say it. No, we're glad you said it, and thank you. That's why this is a great panel. And Leo, come quickly. I got to get to my calls. I see you, Gene. You're coming next.
I just want to say that I am still baffled by the misleadership on the part of John Anderson, the sheriff of Baltimore City, when we talk about crime and violence. I want to leave it there. I don't know what's going on with the sheriff's office.
I tell you what,
they deployed 30 deputies 3 weeks ago at some special interest group
down there,
at Montebello Lake.
And the harbor.
And the harbor. But I don't know where the sheriff's deputies are in our part of town.
I tell you what,
and that's a state agency that is out of control and not accountable.
You know,
not accountable at all.
It would be a real coup d'etat because it ain't but two people running for sheriff, and one is David Anthony Wiggins. Y'all check that block, and David Anthony Wiggins becomes sheriff. Lord have mercy, I tell you, it's gonna be a poo-poo up in the pie and house.
Would he be worse than the sheriff?
Well, Leo, you said that they don't have any accountability. But if, like I said, if you look at that public and local law, technically, that Civilian Review Board has the authority to review everything they do, including their policies.
Amen.
But they don't because nobody's speaking up except for you and Doc Cheatham and a few other people that are trying to stop this
He doesn't
foolishness.
even campaign for office.
You know what got me the other day?
He doesn't campaign. I'm talking about John
Johnson. I'm telling y'all to vote for David Anthony Wiggins. You want my recommendation. You want to upset the apple cart, put him in there. I guarantee you that the apple cart will get upset. But Leo, I want to say this, talking about this problem we're having with electing people who have our interest at heart. And the Florida is a prime example. Just look at the governor's election down there. Just pay attention to that. Look at MSNBC and look at what's going on. This guy has been outed as a racist, and I think the gentleman now, Gillum, has like a 7 or 8 point lead, which is shocking everybody because Florida is notoriously conservative. Okay, because you got all those older white people down there who are the harbinger of racism. These are the people that have been racist most of their lives and now don't want to see things change. If they vote in Gillum for governor, man, I'll tell y'all.
The problem is the Puerto Ricans have invaded
Florida,
the peninsula of Florida. So,
so that's going to give them even more promise, huh?
Yes, sir.
Gene, welcome. Thank you for holding. You have a question or comment? Welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People.
I have a question and a comment. My question, my comment. Joan Carter Conway. The other day, a couple of days ago, I said that the governor is in charge of the police in Baltimore, and so Joan Carter Conway came on and gave an in-depth description and an account of how the governor runs the police department. Okay, so I just wanted to say that. The other thing, that's why we need Ben Jealous, because if we had a governor who could run the police department the way that it should be ran, a police review board, etc., then I think we'd be in better standing. The other thing too is that I decided today I wasn't going to call in until you said Craig Wolf, and somebody finally said Craig Wolf. So I said, let me call in. So Craig Wolf is I voted. This is the first time I voted in several elections because I just wasn't interested. It was this wasn't my cup of tea.
I'm surprised by that, but go ahead.
No, the HBCU issue was an issue that was near and dear to me. Okay. So I said, well, I'll jump in on this one. Now, so Craig Wolf, I voted for him. David Allen Wiggins, I voted for him. He's the other Republican.
Yes.
So,
that you voted for.
That's right. He said, well, we said we're not going to vote for, we only voting for one Republican. That scares me because David Allen Wiggins is the other Republican.
Is that David Anthony Wiggins?
David Anthony
Wiggins.
But, sir, can I just interject something in there?
Go ahead.
One, yes, the Baltimore Police Department is technically a state agency, but their laws were changed some years ago to allow the mayor to choose the
commissioner.
That's part A. In order for that department to run right, they have to have a commissioner whose sole job is to run that department in order to enforce the laws of the state of Maryland, not to be a politician.
But would Ben Jealous be in favor of...
Well, Jealous is not... If Jealous would be governor, he would not have the complete control. That should come through the Attorney General's office because the Attorney General is technically the chief law enforcement officer for the state of Maryland.
Well, okay, I'm the same. So now, Patrick, I'm going to get all in your business. Then you should have...
Praise and watch it now.
No, you should have... I'm sorry. Then you should have... what's her name I just mentioned?
Joan Carter who?
She was our champion. She was our HBCU
Joan Carter
champion.
and that young man on to let us know and inform us properly so we know what we're talking about.
Well, we have one more next Monday.
Okay, great.
Do you think that would be important? Would that help you?
Well, no.
Clarify for everybody.
But we have, our audience and our community. We need to be informed. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I will ask questions. I try my best to ask the right questions.
Man, love your comments. Can I make one brief one? Tomorrow when I'm at Morgan, I'm going to have my little steno pad, and there's a possibility of at least 36 individuals that I'm going to see whether or not they are present or not present. And who am I talking about? I'm talking about the senator and delegate candidates running for the 40th, the 41st, the 43rd, the 45th, and 46th, the candidates running for sheriff, register, wills, and clerk. I'm going to see if y'all are there at the HBCU rally tomorrow. Because if you're not there, I'm going to highly publicize the fact that you weren't there. There are 2 HBCUs in the city of Baltimore.
Yes, sir.
If anyone should be standing up for our HBCUs, it's you candidates that stand a great likelihood of being elected next Tuesday. And we're saying here's what needs to be done. We need to call out names. If you're not there supporting HBCUs, we're going to call you out.
Next Monday on this show.
That's right.
Rick, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. You have a question or comment? Rick? 1, 2, 3. Rick? I guess he held for so long. Sorry, sir. Call us back. D on line 3. Yes, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. You have a question or comment?
Yes. I'm trying to figure out what, we talking about the election and the HBCUs and all of that. But, we're talking about Ben Jealous and Hogan. My thing is, Ben Jealous, he is a good candidate. He was the head of the NAACP. A lot of people do know that.
No, he's no longer.
But
Mr. Johnson is the president of the NAACP.
He has not been visible.
Well,
That's
maybe. So you think Larry Hogan has been more visible than him?
Let me say this. I went to Chris Field. People don't know about it. I'm sure you all know about it. It's Chris Field. They have their clam bake every year.
Crab feast and clam bake.
He was, yes. I haven't seen him. I haven't seen either one of them. But my thing is this.
That might tell you how you might want to vote. None of the above.
Wait a minute. Can I finish?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I vote every year. In fact, I work the polls, so I do extra. I've been doing that for like 10 years or more.
God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm already. I'm in the union and everything.
All right,
my
now.
thing is this. Yeah, we have not seen Ben Jealous. He has not said too much to the community. He has been out of state raising money here.
That's just simply not true. Ben Jealous announced his candidacy in my community, which is Ashburton, down on Rosefield Avenue. And I've seen him at Morgan. I've seen him at Morgan State. I've seen him at Bethel AME Church. He's all around. Maybe you just haven't been there, ma'am. But don't give this
all of his money has been raised grassroots wise. He has refused to take PAC money, and he's refused to take corporate money.
Patrick.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Can I have gone quite a while just to say what I wanted to say.
Well, come on, I'm gonna let you go ahead.
You're cutting me up, but the point is, this is just my feeling.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm not saying I'm not voting for him. I don't agree with Hogan, but some people laid out what Hogan didn't do for Baltimore City.
Yes, they did beautifully.
I called numerous radio stations talking about him not doing anything for Baltimore City, and we got these people running around saying Hogan's Democrats for Hogan, and did they ever tell you what he did?
No.
And they even laid it out in some paper, all the things he didn't do for Baltimore, which I agree with every one of them. And I didn't even know they were in the paper, the things that they said. I said before. But the thing is, he has not been visible grassroots-wise. This is what I'm saying.
Over the last 4 years.
Oh, you talking about Hogan? In the communities. He might have been at a church, this or that. He has not been in the community.
So, but why does that mean anything? Well, we ain't seen Hogan in 4 years, and all of a sudden he all down here. So what? Why is it so? The white man's water is ice is colder. That you might favor him over a black man who might not have been here as much as you think he should have been here. But what he stands for is what our basic needs are, and what is addresses us our needs. Yes, ma'am.
I don't disagree. Listen to me. I don't disagree with you at all. Okay. Right. That's not my point. My point is Hogan is well known because he's been the governor for whatever the time, 4 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
If somebody's running for governor, to me, this is the same thing that happened to Brown. He ran for governor, but he wasn't visible in the community.
I agree, he was, but he didn't think he was black either, so that didn't,
I'm not even disputing that point is. He is not visible. People don't really know him. He hasn't made a name. Even the commercials started first day one with Hogan hitting him on these things. I haven't seen that many commercials he put out.
Well, he don't have the money. He doesn't have the money. You got to realize that Hogan is backed by the Koch brothers. He's backed by the Republican National Governors Association.
It's like he only want to spend the money. I haven't seen anything with him. That's all I'm saying.
Are you a first-time caller, D? Are you I know I've heard your name before. It's not your first time calling my show, is it?
No, it's not.
I didn't think it was. No, she's a regular, and I appreciate your support. But I don't think. But I don't think you should. D, don't let that stop you from voting for him just because you don't feel like you haven't seen. Yeah, you said that. All right, all right.
Put it out there, but the point is, he just said not, and I think he needs to. If any downfall comes because of this. People don't know him. That's all I'm saying.
All right, thank you, D.
He should have been more visible. He should even all the events that I heard it was a debate. He sent his lieutenant governor. He wasn't there. This is what I'm saying. He might have been at 3 or 4 things. How many things has he really appeared in this year?
Who are you talking about now, Hogan or Ben?
Ben Jealous sent his running mate to the last.
I just don't understand why that's pertinent. Why that's pertinent is what he's going to do. Kathy Hughes laid it out very clear. Miss Kathy Hughes laid it out, the difference between the two, and arguing about whether he's been visible enough. It takes a lot of money to do what you need to do, and it takes a lot of time. And I wish, but the bottom line is we know who he is. We have but to read his policies to know what he would do if he's elected governor. Angela, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Do you have a question or comment?
Yes, I have a comment, and then I have a question for you, Jennifer.
Okay.
Comment is, I didn't like y'all saying about my President Obama.
Okay.
Y'all say President Obama didn't help enough for the cops for school.
Right.
I feel as though it's to each individual that wants something out of life.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to want something out of life, you will go to school.
Right.
You wouldn't depend on somebody else doing it for you. As James Brown said, open the door.
And
I don't need nobody to give it to me.
I'll get it myself.
I'll get it myself. So this is what we have to realize. As black people, back in the day, when we came up, you don't hear this no more. When I get big, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to work. You don't hear this from these young folks no more. They don't talk about, I want to be something. They don't talk about that because you sit around with your children, and I'm quite sure y'all got kids. They don't sit around and talk about what I want to be and I want to do this, I want to do that.
Well, maybe
they don't talk about that.
But I got to disagree with you. I work in a school. I have an after-school program. And I tell you, I got 24 children, and I handle that class by myself. I don't even have an assistant. And I cannot tell you the ambition and the joy of those children at learning. So I have to disagree with you from my experience.
I'm not talking about the young folks. I'm talking about
these are young people.
No, I'm talking about the people that is in high school on their way out the door.
You know
they
why?
Don't talk about that.
You know why?
Let me finish.
Okay.
Then you can say something. I'll listen to you.
All right, sweetheart.
Then you got the 11th and the 12th grades not talking like that no more. Know why? Because when they get there to that level, everything negative is in their ear. Everything. From A to Z. Ain't nothing positive in the 11th and 12th grade. For our black young women and our black young men. And the only way they can make it, most of them like me. I left school and came back and went and got my high school diploma. I ain't get a GED. Because of the peer pressure. And a lot of them left. And came back and got their high school diploma. And moved on. And I made it in life.
Yes, ma'am.
But you don't hear that in the 11th and 12th. We have to tell the truth to our children before they get there. Hey, this is the deal. This is going to happen. You got to be careful. Don't let nobody use your mind. You use your own mind. I'm going to listen to you now.
All right. Now, listen, Leo, I'm going to come right to you. Frederick Douglass said that it is easier to mold and shape a child than it is to fix a broken man. After puberty, you are right. Once they come into puberty, we have basically lost them if we don't get them between the ages of 3 years old and 10 years old. And this is what I'm doing, and I hear you. And my mother told me about my dad, what her mama told him. She said, baby, he gonna try to be a good husband, but because his father left him when he was in the 8th grade, he never saw wholeness. So it's difficult to repeat what you haven't seen. Our young people don't hear it. The older ones, they don't hear it, and they've missed that validation that we don't give them. So we shouldn't really blame them. We should try to recapture them, but we cannot blame them for what they don't know because they haven't seen it and they can't repeat it. So I appreciate your call. Amen. Diane, I hope you call again.
One more thing.
Come on.
One more thing. Jealous is not good. My husband worked for NSA for 30 years.
Jealous is not good.
Listen, let me tell you, then I'm going to get off. My husband was working at NSA. Thank God he retired. He was trying to get his 13. They fought him. My husband fought him for years.
In NSA?
So when he went to
NAACP.
Yes.
Okay.
When he went there, he got no support.
Welcome to the club.
Whatsoever. So this is what I'm saying.
So you gonna blame Jealous for that, or was it a local? Okay.
I'm not blaming Jealous.
Okay, but a lot of people complain about the NAACP. Thank you, but I cannot give that any credence at all because you have problems right here in the local, and we can't even imagine what the national is like. Yes, Leo.
Well, stereotyping the 11th and 12th grade black youth is not where we need to go. I understand that some folks are negative. What we must have are street ministries that are led by the black churches, the fraternities, the sororities, the community organizations. You've got to reach out to youth. It's not, and some youth have parents, some don't. Parents have responsibilities.
Try to see if we can get that on the air.
Joe, we can hear you, Jason. I don't know why. Go ahead.
Parents have responsibilities, but we have special needs for our young people, and what we have to do is consistently and courageously, whether we're in the Roots of Scouting or whether we're in a church or a community organization, we've got to reach out to them and mentor them, those who are willing to be mentored, and many of them are. Let's be positive. Let's be positive.
Leo?
Yes.
as a former educator, I've taught at all levels from secondary to post-secondary. And the one thing that I found when I was teaching secondary or conducting classes in secondary is a lot of these young people, both male and female, just want somebody to listen to.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
And if you show them that you care about their interests.
Yes, and their thoughts, yes.
That you care about their interests, you care what they have to say.
Relative.
When I was in that classroom, I didn't have a problem out of them.
Me either.
Because what I did was, I hate to put it like this, I laid the ground rules from day one. I treated them with respect,
mutual,
Mr. or Miss whoever, and then I said we go from here.
Yes, all right, Richard. I'm on. Amen to what you just said. We're going to go to Diane. Diane, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. You have a question or comment? Come quickly, sweetheart. We're running out of time.
Good afternoon. How y'all doing?
All right.
I'm on Diane.
Hey, Doc. Where's the rally at tomorrow?
Rally's tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Morgan State University, the Plaza area, which is the Earl Grave School of Business. It's on Hillen Road. It's right there in that little teeny area called the Plaza area, but it's at the Hillen Road location at Morgan State University, 11:30 a.m. Rally to save our Maryland HBCUs.
I'm gonna make it, but I had to leave because I have to go to therapy. But I called, I thank God for you all and everything. I just want people to know, go out and vote. You got 4 more days, today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. And that's it until next Tuesday to get out and vote, please, everybody. And here's the good thing. If you haven't registered to vote, you got a chance to register and vote at the same time.
Yes, you do.
And also,
only
for the primary voting. For the early, that's right.
For early voting. And that's only early voting. And also on that, one of those questions is that we're trying to get it for not only early voting, but general election to same-day voting.
Yes, ma'am.
Registering. So I'm just letting people know, go out and vote. Vote who you want to vote for. I can't tell you who to vote for. But when the young lady before your last caller, she was right. That's how the young people won, y'all. Please be honest. The young people went out and did the old-fashioned campaign. When they took and upset these older senators in the state of Maryland, they went out and did the old-fashioned way. They went knocking door to door. And, I heard y'all say they've been jealous. Well, he got people, they have not come in my community either. But that's not stopping me from not voting. But it's just that the indignity, that everybody thinks because they black, but because, okay, if you say I'm a working class person, come in my community. I'm not the only person that's in my community to vote. We have older people in my community that pay way for me to vote. So, give them respect.
Not only that, but go volunteer. If you don't see enough people with Ben jealous, then you need to go.
Well, I can't because I'm a chief judge. I cannot do that. I can't do that.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Diane. Thanks, sweetheart. I understand that. But she brought up 2 points. There are 2 ballot questions that are critical to democracy, according to the Baltimore Sun, and I agree. One is a yes vote on question H, which would amend the Baltimore City Charter and lay groundwork for a new program to get big money out of Baltimore City elections. Vote yes on question 8, and back on the next one is vote yes on question 2 of our statewide ballot, would change the state's constitution to allow voter registration on election day.
Patrick, but
yes.
that one ballot initiative with regards to big money, Dwight, you may know better than I would this fly in the face of Citizens United?
Yes, to a degree.
Good question. I have
to a degree. Yeah. It would have to. If it would stop it, it would have to. So you're saying that they're just going to sue it and say the Supreme Court has ruled that it can't happen, so you think it's going to come back on them? Is that what you're saying, Richard?
I think that's what I'm thinking is going to happen, because it's going to be contradictory to Citizens United, which allowed the big money to come in to begin with when corporations were given the ability to pour money into campaigns.
Well, maybe that's the reason they're trying to get it, because question H on the ballot says it would help establish a Baltimore fair elections program to enable candidates to run for office without relying on large or corporate donors. Participating candidates could no longer take giant checks from the lobbyists, corporations, or PACs. So if they get it into our laws, then it wouldn't matter, because state would be able to override the Supreme Court.
It becomes a case of controversy controversy to be decided by the federal courts.
It would have to go back to the federal courts again.
Okay, that election day registration, though, is a good one. I'm going to keep going here. We got a few more minutes. Oh, Lordy. Mohammed, come quickly, sir. I'm so sorry. We only have a couple of minutes left. You have a question or comment?
Well, you know what, brother? I'm used to that, brother, but I'm going to say what I'm going to say.
Come forth.
I'm crazy about Leo, but I just take issue with what he's saying. Well, he's right on one end, but I'm going to tell you something right now. It's not the Christians' time.
Oh.
You guys had your turn, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Going forward into the 21st century. Mm-hmm. And, we have to obey God. And God sets us prophets, and we just go to where He wants us to go.
So, can you have God without being a Christian?
Duboisism has been a failure. The talented tenth has morphed into the traitorous tenth. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah, right. Bill's the first time call. Bill, welcome. I'm so sorry we only have such a short time. You have a question or comment?
I want to make it short, sweet, and to the point. Your offer is vitally important to you, and I feel as though I should let you know this, that if you have a surgeon, he'll give you antibiotics. If you have a dentist, he'll give you antibiotics. But if it comes down to your primary care doctor, he will not give you antibiotics. I will give you neither or not. It doesn't matter. He will not give you any antibiotics. You're going to try to get antibiotics out of your primary care doctor, and he'll give you the runaround, and he'll never give it to you.
Why? Why? Hello? He never said why he wouldn't give it to you. I've gone to the doctor.
I haven't had that experience.
I haven't had that experience either. If I go in there, if I go to the dentist, the first thing he do, he ain't gonna even touch my tooth till I get rid of that infection. So I don't know what you're talking about, sir. We sort of missed
they give
this
you
here.
antibiotics before they even will touch you.
Now, what he may be saying is the opioid part of it. Now, the opioids, a lot of...
In opioids are not in antibiotics. Why do you put those two together, Richard?
No, I'm not putting them together. I'm just saying he might be confusing the two.
One's a painkiller. We do. All right, listen. You have been listening to Patrick Henderson Meet the People. Honors to the brilliant A. Dwight Pettit for joining us and his wonderful book, Under Color of Law. Y'all need to get. I thought about your mama the other day when she saw your wife and when she saw she was a dark honey, and she just said, "Oh, look at you." And I smiled when I passed your house because of that section. Because being a dark complexion, I know the feeling. Okay, thank you, Doc Cheatham, for joining us today. God bless you. And Leo Burroughs, y'all had a great time the other night with your kids. We did great things in the community.
At the Black Eagle Court of Honor.
And
praise the Lord.
And your scouting thing is coming up when?
Our crab feast is Friday.
This coming Friday.
Friday at the Forum.
Y'all get your tickets. You can't get
this
forum.
Today is the deadline, so we got to know what folks are going to do
Just
today.
Call Leo. God bless you. You've been listening to Patrick Henderson Meet the People on WLB 1010 in Baltimore. Have a great week. Talk to you later. Bye.
This is not the time to get distracted, and this is not the time to go off course. This is not the time to lose your focus. Got a work to do for the Lord, and you cannot afford to lose your way. You come too far from where you started.
The new 1010 WOLB with talk in the day and soul at night.
When opioid addiction strikes, lives are lost and families destroyed. Boyd Rutherford's Before It's Too Late campaign responds with urgency. As chair of Governor Hogan's Emergency Task Force, Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford balances prevention, treatment, and enforcement to save lives and ease family heartache. Lieutenant Governor Rutherford believes an innovative family-centered approach can help break the cycle of poverty. A graduate of Howard University, Rutherford has balanced a lifetime of experience in the public and private sectors. At a time when some rifts seem unbridgeable, the Hogan-Rutherford team is bringing Maryland together. Working side by side, Boyd Rutherford and Larry Hogan tackle the toughest challenges in our community. Vote Boyd Rutherford. He's a lieutenant governor for all of Maryland. This message has been authorized and paid for by RSLC Matt Walter, President. This message has not been authorized or approved by any candidate.
1010 WOLB Baltimore and WERQ-FM HD3 Baltimore.
The views and opinions of the guest and host you hear are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Radio 1, its sponsors, or advertisers.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Discoveries in Health.